So my guest today is Penny Jenkins, who is the author of My Perfect Sister, which is written under the name of Penny Batchelor. Is that right?
That's right. Yes, it's my maiden name. And when I got married, I kept it for writing because I was a journalist before. And I know maybe about 3 people knew me under that name. So I kept it. So I am Jenkins, but professionally, I'm known as Penny Batchelor. And that's what my social media accounts and my website is under.
Right. Okay. Fantastic. So we were just saying before I hit record, My Perfect Sister. I've read it in less than a week, which should give you some indication as to how much I enjoyed it. So
Thank you.
if you can just give us a little bit of a premise, don't no spoilers, just the overview of what it's about and the characters involved.
Well, it's the story of Annie. And when she was 5, her big sister Gemma went missing. She didn't come home from school one day, and Annie's childhood was completely overshadowed by this missing sister, which Annie sort of resented in a way because she felt that there wasn't much space and time in all the grieving for her. She leaves home when she's 16, and then lots of different circumstances conspire to bring her back when she's 30, back to her childhood home. Her dad is deceased, but her mum's still there. And she does end up wanting to try and find out for closure, really. Where is Gemma? What happened to her? But is it safe for her to do so? Mm.
Oh, da,
You'll have
da,
to read and
da.
find out.
Absolutely, and it's definitely worth a read, definitely. So it took me less than a week to read it, reading late into the night because I couldn't put it down. I was just desperate to know what happened to um, not just the main character Annie, but the surrounding, the kind of supporting cast as well, shall we say.
Oh,
Preta
she's
was a
got
particular favourite of mine. I thought the characterization that you did of her was it makes me want to ask how long did you spend developing the characters before you committed them to be part of this novel?
Well, I had quite a long journey to writing the novel. It was about 5 years between starting it and getting it published. So all that time, those characters were sort of becoming real in my head
Mm,
and growing and changing. And as I wrote the novel and then rewrote bits, they just became to me like real people,
yeah,
really. And I would, if I was in the shops, I'd think, well, what would Annie buy for a tea? And just little things
yeah.
like that. What would her mum want to watch on telly? So yes, they really took time to marinate in my head. But when I was writing my second book, it was a lot shorter time scale. So I felt I had to sort of speed all that time up a bit to
Yeah.
really try to get to know the characters. And I wanted to write people that you could relate to in some way, even if you didn't particularly like them very much.
Mm,
Um, and I personally, I like to write what I like to read, and I like characters who are well rounded, even if they don't appear a great for a lot of time in the novel. I
mm.
don't want people just to be there to make the plot go forward rather than as a believable person.
Yeah, and I think that's evident in how you write as well. And one of the things that intrigued me, because it's something that I have attempted in my writing and failed drastically, is that you write in the first person, in the present tense. How did you come to writing it in that style? Was it just something that came naturally to you, or because
And it was
then you obviously slipped to the third person when you're talking about the past? But I was just intrigued as to how your mind worked to get that
Well, I wanted to make
juxtaposition.
that differentiation for the reader between the past and the present, which is why most of it's written from Annie's perspective in the first person, but then, as he said, the others in the third.
Mm,
But it all came about on a course that I took, which was a Faber Academy's Writing a Novel for
right.
6 months course, which I took in 2015. I
Mm.
think it was 2015. It was that long ago. And one of the exercises was to write your opening paragraph in third and in first. And then we all shared our work and discussed which felt right for
Mm,
that book. So I did that, and it just was immediate to me, obvious that you needed to be inside Annie's head and really see
mm,
what she saw and feel what she feels.
mm.
And then once I sort of carried on with that, it became very natural to me. So as
Yeah.
much going into the third person started to feel a bit strange because you start to get that narrator in there.
Yeah. So how did you write it? Did you write all the first person perspectives first and then kind of filter in the backstory, or what was your writing process?
Well, I'm sort of part way between a plotter and a pantser. I
Mm.
like to know my beginning, my middle, and the end, even if the end changes, which it did.
Mm.
Um, Not drastically, but I did rewrite the ending a few times. But I that didn't mean I just wrote from the beginning to the end all the way,
Mm.
because some bits I wasn't sure about, and they only came to me as I got to know the characters more,
Right.
and was lying in bed, and just that time between just falling asleep when your mind just wanders and goes, things, ideas would come to me, and I think, oh, that would be good to add in. So sometimes I would write scenes that were further ahead in the book, but I'd not got to yet, and then I got to work out how to bring them all together.
Mm.
Um, so yes, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, very much so. How many drafts did you write of the first? Was it? I mean, I kind of stopped at draft 5. I'd bored myself to death with the 5 drafts and thought I need to stop now because otherwise I'm just going to be fiddling forever. So how did it work for you with Perfect Sister?
Well, I tend to edit as I go along.
Oh,
Because some
right.
days, you know what it's like. I wouldn't say it's writer's block, but I'm stuck a bit as to where to go. So I tend to use that time to go back and look at what I've done, and then
Yeah.
rewrite it where necessary, and then that gives me ideas for where to go. So
Mm.
I was doing that all the time and taking bits out and putting them in another document, and I might come back to them later, or they might just get trashed.
Mm.
Um, but as to actually full drafts, well, I wrote one, and then sort of one that I was relatively happy with. And then I applied to Faber Academy to have it read by a professional reader and have a report.
Right.
And that was really good. I mean, it wasn't cheap, but it was ever so helpful because it was written, the chap said it was really positive about my writing, but then gave ever so constructive feedback on how the novel could be improved. Some of the things that he said, I kind of thought I wasn't so sure about
Mm.
myself in the book, and so he picked up on my worries. But a few things I'd not even thought of, so it was brilliant to have
Right.
that expertise.
Yeah.
So I went and rewrote it again, and sort of bits and bobs. Then I sent it out to publishers, and then I was thrilled when the day after I sent my first 3 chapters and synopsis to Red Door that they said, right, we want to read it all.
Oh my God, the day after.
It was the day after, and then there was
Penny.
I sent it, and there was a 2-week break, and oh, it was awful because I just thought, well, the day after they wanted to read it, so obviously, I mean, they must have read it in 2 weeks, so obviously they can't like it, and they're just going to think of some, well, thank you, but no, thank you.
Yeah.
But it turned out that she'd been on holiday because it was in August. So she did get back to you and say, yes, we love it, we want it. But then, of course, as every writer will know, that doesn't mean that there's not a lot more work to go in
Yeah.
to do some changes that they advise, and then the line edits and all that.
Mm.
So more work went into it then.
Yeah. Oh, but how did that feel then when they came back and said, yeah, we want to take the book?
Unreal. It was just
Yeah.
amazing. And I didn't want to tell anybody until, apart from my husband, until that I really knew it was true and
Yeah.
line on the dotted line, because sort of part of me thought, well, what if they change their mind or go bust the next day or something like that? But it was just a fabulous feeling. And then to actually see that book in my hands when, although it took a while because of coronavirus, and I
Yeah.
was published during the lockdown and all that, but to actually see that book in my hands and think that was just an idea in my head, and now it's this product that's there for all time, just a fabulous feeling.
Had you always wanted to be a writer? Because you've had a bit of a varied career with the BBC, I think, and content editing and things.
I did always want to be a writer. Yeah, I'm that cliche. I spent a lot of time in hospital as a child, and books were my sort of savior, really.
Mm.
I have a physical disability, and had a lot of fractures and operations and things. So
Mm.
not much you can do when you're stuck in bed. I was never any good at drawing. I'm still on stickman level. So it's reading. That's the other thing. And so I love getting lost in the world of books.
Yeah.
And ever since I learned to write, I was writing stories myself. But it wasn't until I got to 40 that I actually thought, I've got to take this seriously now, because I got lots of beginnings of novels and ideas, and I look back at what I've written in my 20s and just thought, oh, it's a load of rubbish. So I ripped it all up, put it in the recycling, because I thought, I can't bear anybody to read this. So I felt, right, I've really got to take this seriously, give it a go. I think what was putting me off a bit was fear of not being any good, and really trying to write to something I wanted so much. But I didn't want somebody to turn around and say, actually, Penny, you're just no good. So I thought, to be a writer, the biggest tip people say is you've got to write. There's no point to write a novel if and if you don't actually write to the end. So that's why I applied to Faber Academy. It's on the level, the course I did is on the level of master's degree, but I couldn't afford or have the time to actually go out and do a master's. I wanted the writing training without the academic bits. And the course was online, which meant I could do it fitting around my day. And that gave me so much confidence. It's obviously there is criticism there, but it was all formulated well. So it was encouraging rather than just it's just no good.
I did a similar one with Curtis Brown when I first started writing The Lie She Told, and I found the support that came because we had to critique each other's work, which sounds similar to how Faber works. And it was kind of encouraging you to step outside of your comfort zone. And I think one of the things that when I've chatted to other authors is that we all suffer from imposter syndrome, and we all think that we're not good enough. But actually, if you just take that leap of faith, like you say, if you just write, even if nobody else reads it, every time you write something, you're practicing your art and you're getting better. So I would imagine when you moved on to book 2, which I believe you're working on now, did you find that your writing style had changed? Did you become more of a plotter? Did you stay as a pantser? Were you still somewhere in the middle? Had you learned anything from the process of book 1?
I was still somewhere in the middle, but I'm afraid that I had the typical book 2 syndrome, book 2 from hell, because the first book I had 5 years, and now I was trying to write something within about 6 to 9 months.
Right.
And like you said, imposter syndrome. The publishers, they want something the same but different. The advice is, as you will know, if you write a thriller, don't go start writing a historical romance. You want to build up your brand. So it was, but I didn't want to write something that was formulaic and similar. So it was trying to find a different story that really enthused me. Which I came up with, and that the book is coming out in the summer, but it hasn't been officially released yet, all the information. So I can't tell you the date. I can't tell you the title. I'm dying to.
I'm terrible. I can't keep secrets, so don't tell me, Penny.
I do. I'm on Twitter at Penny Author and Facebook. So, and I'm pennybatchelor.co.uk. So anybody listening, please do follow me, because I'm going to blurt it out sometime. I can't wait that long. But I was ever so proud when I finished book 2, because it was hard doing it all again. But I was very lucky, because I've been in with a group of authors who were all published as debuts in 2020 and had the same experiences with coronavirus and having all the parties cancelled and things. And we've all stayed in touch, and we have a weekly Zoom meeting, and that's been a fantastic forum for just discussing with each other and people coming up with ideas. And if somebody's having a bad week, well, we'll all just book them up a bit, and that was really helpful.
Yeah, because I think writing a book, it can be so isolating. And I mean, I tend to work on my own. Maybe a couple of days a week I'd go work from the local cafe, but now I'm kind of stuck here. So doing interviews with people like yourself is my way of kind of keeping up the social contact, and just knowing people are out there with that bit of support can definitely get you through a bad day, I think.
It does. And also your loved ones, I mean, you love them to bits, but if they're not writers, they
Mm.
might not particularly understand. So, I love my mum to heaven and back, but if I say I'm having a really hard time writing this, her advice will be, well, don't bother then if you don't want to. It doesn't matter, does it? Whereas it's really important to me
Yeah,
to get this finished. It's my career. So
yeah.
I think that having supportive writers around you that you can just be honest with and
Mm.
not competitive with
Yeah, absolutely. Collaboration is the way forward, I think. I think we've all got to support each other. Interesting that you mentioned your mum there. One of the things in My Perfect Sister that really kind of highlighted what I felt stood out to me was the relationship that Annie has with her mum. And you make it clear. I mean, it's very complex. It's very challenging, shall we say, for Annie. How did you come up with the kind of the ingredients for that, shall we say? What is that based on, something that you know, or
No, it's just me thinking, well, what if? Because I
mm,
came up with the idea. I can't actually remember the light bulb time when I came up with the idea for the story. It was more gradual than that. But I remember seeing things on the news about families who were bereaved and
mm,
children missing, and the typical way to react is one of sort of grief yourself. But I was thinking, well, what if I had a character who resented that? What if
mm,
I had parents who were so brought down by grief and depression that they just didn't really have that much time for
mm,
a daughter who was still there? And how would that daughter feel? Would they feel that perhaps, the parents thought, well, they would be better off if they were the one that wasn't there?
yeah,
You can't compete with somebody who's not around. They're frozen in that state. Gemma is frozen in the state of a 16-year-old who's got so much potential. So when she's not there, she's not making all the silly mistakes and things that we all do, and
yeah,
having a row with the parents about something. So
yeah,
so I just got to thinking in my imagination about what would that relationship be like? How would that sort of stint the personal
mm,
growth of
mm,
somebody in that situation? And how is it possible to build any barriers and rebuild that mother-daughter relationship?
yeah. I just found it fascinating the way it's kind of peppered throughout the book. I really wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that's not my mum. It's
No,
not
no, no, didn't think for a
bad.
second.
It's all fiction.
That's the beauty of being a fiction writer.
Yeah.
um, okay, so you've set the book in, some of the books set in Yorkshire, and I had to laugh because there's one element in it where you describe a night out in Leeds in the late 1980s. And I did have to think, did we meet at some point? Because you described it perfectly to a T. I mean, the nightclubs, just the whole club scene I found was hilarious. But so what made you set it in Yorkshire then? Do you have an affiliation? Because obviously I'm in Yorkshire. So
Which bit of Yorkshire are you in?
I'm in Wakefield, but
Oh,
my next book is actually set in Leeds because that's where I was brought up. So,
well, I was born and brought up in Doncaster. So
yeah, right.
I don't live there now, so I moved away for work and then settled in the West Midlands. But it's still home to me.
Yeah.
My family is still up there, and it's what I know. And I think Yorkshire's a great county, and there's a real sense of someone being Yorkshire being quite down to earth, quite open. Some of I mean, drinking the cups of tea. There's so many cups of tea drunk in the book,
Yeah.
and I wanted to bring that out. And I'm proud of my Yorkshire heritage and wanted to bring that out in the book. But I deliberately didn't set it in a particular town, so it's not
Mm,
mentioned where Annie's mother actually lives or where she grew up. It's just Yorkshire,
yeah.
and then she moves to this city, Leeds, to get work. So I suppose it's just based on. I mean, I didn't really go. I was too young to go clubbing in the 80s, but
Yeah, well, you got it bang on.
yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, so I really liked the description of Leeds and how you talked about it. So I did wonder if you'd have lived there at some point.
I worked there for 9 months, but I didn't see much of the nightlife really because I was commuting. So
It's probably a good idea, Penny. So just a couple of questions that I'm gonna hit you with now. So I do hope you're ready.
Yes.
Okay. So do you take a notebook everywhere in order to write down ideas that pop up?
I do, yes. I've got one
Yeah.
in my handbag. I know some authors use their phones, but
Yeah.
I'd probably just lose it all and press the wrong button if I did that. So, yes, I have a notebook and I write things down, and then anything that is any good, then I'll put it in a different notebook or in a Word document
Yeah.
that's related to that book that I'm writing. Because I think one of my I guess it's not a failure, but I've got so many ideas for different books. I must have about 12 books that I could write, and they're not all within the thriller genre. So every time I have an idea for another one or something that could go in one of those, I jot it down and make a note. So hopefully I'll never run out of ideas of things to write in the future.
That was going to be my next question, actually, was would you write in a different genre to thrillers? And if
Yes,
so, which one?
I mean, I once asked him, Joanne Harris,
Yeah.
the brilliant writer, and she's chair of the Society of Authors. And I asked her how authors can have a long career, can try and get that longevity. And she said, be open to writing in different genres like she does. But I can imagine that's quite difficult because publishers want you to write in the same genre.
Yeah.
But I would like to branch out because I've got ideas for Gothic, psychological,
Right.
historical. And then I set myself a challenge because I thought I could never write a romantic comedy because I just want to bump somebody off, or get them run over by a bus or something like that. So I challenged myself to come up with an idea, and I did. So that's all written down. So I would like to write that one day to see, do it under a pseudonym to see if it would be any
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, interesting. I like that. Would you ever consider self-publishing?
I'd never say never. I've learned so much about the marketing side of everything since I've become an author, and I've done quite a lot of online webinars and things on it. But I think I would find it, well, it's just the extra stress and strain of being that project manager, coordinating everything. I've got a friend, AJ Campbell, who does it.
Yeah, and we've interviewed Amanda.
Yeah, brilliant, and she does it all, but I don't know how she does it, because to be responsible for everything and getting the cover and all that, it sounds like hard work. So I would never say never, but I prefer if somebody else would do that bit for me.
Each to their own. Okay, so if you could travel to a foreign country to do research, which country would you go to and why?
Will somebody pay me to go and do this?
I'll pay you. Go on.
Right, out Bali.
Sky's the limit.
Go to Bali, so I'll go and stay in a nice 5-star resort and think of some murder mystery that could take place there, and just say that I'm lounging on the sun lounger because it's all work.
Absolutely, yeah, research and work, honestly.
Yeah.
That's what I say when I'm watching all the true crime documentaries on TV, and why the Sky Plan is just full of them. It's research.
Yeah.
What are you reading at the moment, Penny? Do you have a book on the go? Presumably you do.
Well, I'm reading quite a lot because I'm with my author friend EC Scullion. I launched a blog called Thriller Women.
Yes.
www.thrillerwomen.co.uk. We launched that last October, and we've had loads of great feedback.
Yeah.
It's promoting female thriller authors across the genre. It's quite a wide genre, really, thriller writing, isn't it? You've got your psychological, your domestic noir, your more crime, your police procedurals.
Yeah.
So we are celebrating these authors, and we're also introducing readers who love the genre to new books and authors they might not have heard of. So I've lots of books to read for that, because I'm, as you know, when you interview someone, you've got to have read the book. It's most recent done. I just finished one by Phoebe Morgan called The Wild Girls, and that's coming out. I think it's coming out in April.
Just scribbling that down. Yeah.
really good. And actually, that's set in Botswana. So I think if
Right.
you asked her where she'd like to go for research, she'd probably say there.
Yeah.
A luxury resort.
Wow.
Very good.
Yeah, I've been on the Thriller Women blog, and I've discovered a couple of new authors that I haven't read before, so it's absolutely great for that. And I've bookmarked it as well, so I'm going to keep up to date with the stuff that's coming out, because I write it, I read it, I live, I breathe
Oh,
it.
it's definitely on as well.
Yeah, definitely. Um, do you have a certain ritual when you sit down to write? Is there anything in particular, I need to have a cup of coffee in place, otherwise the day's not going to start? What about yourself? What
Well,
do you have
chocolate always helps, if I want to plug in a bit. I always have a bottle of water beside
Yeah.
me. I don't tend to have a set ritual. I have chronic fatigue, so I have to write when I feel awake, really, and that tends to be evening time.
Mm,
And also, evening time tends to be the time of the day when there's less that people want you to do.
yeah.
So got more quiet time. And in fact, my second book, I finished it 4:15 in the morning
Oh,
because I
wow.
straight through. My husband, bless him, went and stayed, slept in the spare room,
Oh.
so I could just keep going in comfort. So I just sort of write when I can, when I'm up to it, and um, I like to have quiet. I don't know how people can write when they've got the radio on or the telly. And you said that you write in coffee shops. Again, I don't know how you do that because I'd be people watching. There'd be so much to distract me. I need quiet.
Yeah, it's great if you get stuck in a scene and you see somebody do something and you think, oh, I might just write that in the book. And I find it good for triggering little mannerisms for people. So yeah, a bit of people watching, bit of note taking whilst I'm in the cafe drinking my coffee. So yeah, but interesting you mentioned the chronic fatigue element. I have chronic fatigue as well, but for me, I'm kind of the reverse. I'm better on a morning, and then by kind of 3-4 o'clock, I'm done. I'm wiped. That's it. I'm out for the day. Do you find it interferes with your writing a lot, or do you work around it?
Well, I have to work around it. I mean,
Yeah.
for me, mornings are out. I mean, I have chronic pain as well, and so I take quite strong painkillers in the morning,
Mm,
which means that, I'm normally asleep or not fit for anything.
mm,
So, as you know, with chronic fatigue, you've just got to pace yourself and work
yeah.
around your body. There's no point me pushing myself too far because I know that will mean that the next day's wiped out.
Oh, yeah.
It's just writing as and when, really.
Yeah.
The thing is about when I am resting, I use that time to think
Yeah.
and let all the characters come alive in my mind and think
Yeah.
of plot points and things. So
Yeah.
it's not time wasted.
Yeah, I think, but taking that rest is super important, isn't it? Because if you want to give your best the next day, if you want energy for the next day and the day after, you have to learn pacing.
You do, and if you don't mind me sort of commenting as well, that I have a physical disability, and one of the things that I wanted to get in my book was
Mm,
positive representation of disability. So I've got a character in there. His name is Ian. He's
mm,
a solicitor, and he is a friend of Annie's, who she goes to for some advice
yeah.
about what they're dealing with the police. So he is a wheelchair user, and I deliberately put that in there because I very rarely see any representations of people with a disability or chronic illness
Mm,
in literature. And when you do, it's normally some sort of misery, isn't
yeah.
it? Awful tale, or it's triumph over tragedy, which I've gone and climbed up Ben Nevis or something. If you want to do that, great, but it's not realistic. It's not. It's not portraying usual everyday lives. And so
Yeah.
I wanted to get that in there. And it's also in my second book as well.
Yeah, I applaud you for that. Well done. It's something that does need to be highlighted an awful lot more and talked about as well, because I think people just think you're being lazy or you just can't be bothered, and actually that's not true. Anyway,
Yeah.
moving on. Which books did you love to read as a child? I know you mentioned you spent a lot of time in hospital, so was there a particular author you would verge
Oh,
towards?
I read anything and everything.
Did you?
I mean, to start off with, my my dad had a book called Richard Scary, and it was Busy Busy World, and it was a kids' book about all the people in different countries. And my parents always read to us when we were children. My brother's 2 years older than me, so that got read to me as well. And I love Mr. Men books.
Yeah.
There was one written by Roger Hargreaves, Are You a Roundie or a Squarey? And I must have read that with my dad about 1,000 times, because you wanted to be a roundie because they were nicer. It was roundies smile with their eyes, squaries smile with their teeth. I'll never forget that bit.
Okay. Interesting.
I read comics. I mean, I firmly believe that children should just read what they want. You
Yeah.
shouldn't say that's not highbrow enough. I mean, I
Oh.
read, and then I read, going as I got a bit older, I read all the American sickly teenage romance things, as well as my mum's Barbara Taylor Bradford and things like that, as well as Jane Eyre.
Yeah.
I just read whatever I could get my hands on, really.
Yeah.
So as for favourites, I can't. Well, I just read so much, I can't really remember.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on today. I've really enjoyed chatting to you and finding out a little bit more about the person behind My Perfect Sister. So just tell us a little bit, Penny, where can people find you if they want to look for you online?
Well, my website is www.pennybatchelor.co.uk, and I'm getting it overhauled in May, so it should be brand spanking new. There's also an email newsletter that you can sign up to, and every time I produce one, somebody gets a free book just for joining in. So yeah, please do sign up for that, and if you do, you'll be one of the first to know about book 2.
Yes.
I'm also on Twitter, which is Penny_author, and on Facebook I'm Penny Author, and on Instagram I'm Penny Batchelor Author. But I'm afraid I don't have the time to regularly update all of those. So Twitter is the one that I'm on the most.
Okay, fine. I'll put all the links underneath the show anyway, so that people can go and they can find you. So can we make a promise that you'll come back on when book 2 is out?
Oh, please. I'd love to. In fact, what I'm hoping to do is have, I mean, I'm hoping that in the summer bookshops will be open again.
Yeah,
And I'm
fingers
hoping to
crossed.
have one, at least one in Yorkshire. So come along.
Definitely. Yeah, you must tell us about that, and we'll make sure that we come along mob-handed and say hello. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time. I do appreciate it. And yeah, let's keep in touch, and let's see what happens with book 2.
Thanks ever so much. Bye.
No problem. Take care.